I'm Daniel Zuniga. I'm a principal systems architect here at SAS. Today we're going to talk about the SAS batch runtime. The agenda for today is what you guys see here on the screen. We're going to try to do a live demo, but I don't know how that's going to go. But for the next 25 minutes, we're going to focus on these items. So before we get started, I just want to make sure that we all have some kind of understanding that this is an early preview. It's not released to the public yet. So if you guys are interested in using it, please contact me after the presentation and we can make some arrangements. So what is SBR? So SBR is a fully licensed SAS VIA container. It is based on the Spree, if you guys are familiar with that. The Spree is the engine behind the compute context. So nothing that we've done here is outside of the VIA realm. Everything is integrated with VIA. All we're doing here is just giving you an additional deployment option for your SAS batch workloads. One of the great things about it is that once you've built your container and you've built your job flows around it, there's no VIA dependency, so that opens up the door to be used on external batch execution environments like AWS Batch or Google Batch. There are minimal changes required for the code, so whenever you guys want to use this, the idea is that you don't have to change your code a whole lot or at all, but what you may have to do is just do some configuration changes given that you may be using an external system, not VIA itself. And another great capability or feature is that the image can be versioned. So if you're in a regulated environment and you need to keep copies of your execution environments for reproducibility down the road, this gives you the opportunity to create your own images for the execution environment that's got a particular version that applies to perhaps a particular test that you want to do. So some of the use cases that we have in mind and that we have discussed with some customers are that a lot of folks want to develop and test in VIA, but then run their workloads somewhere else. And that somewhere else, it has to be one of the big cloud batch execution environments. The other use case is where folks want to, again, develop and test in VIA. They want to do it in the cloud, but they have a requirement to run their batch processes on-prem because they can't move their data out to the cloud. So they can still do that on-prem with SBR. And again, the big deal here is the ability to support reproducibility and having version images so you can go back and forth and prove your testing. Some of the execution environments are these. I'm not going to go over them, but basically if it can run a container of any kind, it can run SBR. That's the big reveal there. So what is the actual workflow to build one of these things? So everything starts with VIA. So the expectation is that you have a fully licensed VIA environment where you're going to do your development and testing, so your users are using SAS Studio, VS Code, whatever the interface they like to interact with VIA and write code. That's what they're going to do here. They're going to do all their testing there, and then eventually it's going to get to the point where you're going to build an SBR image, okay? And the SBR image can be either packaging everything in it, like code and configuration files, or just be an image that contains just the configuration and the code is attached to it later. So once it's built, you're going to publish it to your container registry, and at that point you have a version ready to go SBR image that you can use for pretty much any purpose with any SAS code that you want to use. Then at runtime, this is a big requirement. You have to provide a valid VIA license, okay? And once you have that, you have to obviously pick which SPR image you want to use for your for your for your batch job, and also make sure that you have all the correct volume mounts attached to it so it can actually execute the code properly. And one of the things that is very, very critical here that is kind of hard to represent is that you have to keep in mind that now we're outside of VIA. There's no VIA infrastructure here required. So the requirement is for you to make sure that your batch execution environment has access to the same data that you had access to in VIA, right? Also the output location, so you can send your output somewhere. And if you're creating reports and ODS output, that sort of stuff, that it goes to the right location. So all of that is all configurable. It's nothing that you're prevented from doing here. All right, so any questions so far before we try to get into the demo? Okay. All right, so crossing fingers here that the live demo works. All right, so what we're going to do here real quick, and I already did a run, it's we're going to basically, I'll walk you through the steps so you don't have to watch me copy and paste here. But the first thing that we need to do, we're going to log into ECR, which is the container registry that I'm using, and I'm going to get ready to push the image. First, I'm going to have to tag it after I build it locally. Then I'm going to tag it, and then I'm going to do a run on Fargate, basically AWS batch. So one of the things here that is important to understand, right now you guys are seeing everything in command line, but you have the ability to build this into any sort of pipeline that you want. Whatever tooling that you prefer to use, you can create a pipeline that does exactly what I'm doing here by hand. So what we're going to do here is go ahead and submit the job. This is going already out to AWS Batch, and it's got a job submission there. You can use that job ID later to pull the logs if you want. But for the purpose of the demo, we're just going to dive right into the job screen in AWS Batch so we can see what we got going on here. So right here, what we see is that AWS Batch is pulling the container down from ECR. That's why it says starting. And it's getting it ready to run. So it'll go through its own processes behind the scenes to allocate resources to run the container based on the batch definition that we created. And again, that batch definition can be anything that works for you. It's not hard-coded in any way, shape, or form. Now, this part is suspenseful, and basically, we just have to wait a couple minutes for the job to actually run. The job is literally not running yet. We're just waiting for AWS to provide resources. But right now, you'll see that the log stream says pending. So that's basically telling you we're just waiting for it to run. So I don't have to make you wait and watch this, because it's painful for me. Here's my previous run a few minutes ago, where we have a log that's ready. All right. So what you see here is basically the SAS log, right? So if you guys are familiar with that, you're seeing all those notes and all those things are familiar. The one part that may be new for you to see is this very beginning, sort of like a preamble that the container does. It's basically telling you that it's applying the license, it's doing a few things, kind of housekeeping tasks that it has to do before it can run. And then it gets into running the code itself. And again, you're seeing a full SAS log from here. And finally, at the very end, you're going to see that the container does a double check on the logs. Obviously, you're going to have some tooling built in here for, for CloudWatch to alert you if there are errors on the logs and whatnot, but the container itself, it'll tell you at the very end whether or not it saw some warnings or errors or anything of that sort. And we have a successful run at this point. That's, in a big nutshell, this is what SBR is. And again, if you guys have any questions, please shoot them at me now. I am sitting out at the administration booth back on the other side, so if you have any more questions, you want to dive in deeper, we can. So I'll open it up for questions and let me know what you think. Hang on, wait for the mic.
Thank you. We have a fully functional VIA environment, and we will be deploying batch jobs. Now, this tool that SBR, is it essentially an independent tool, independent of VIA completely, where we can run our jobs in production?
So it isn't fully independent, okay? So you have to start with VIA. Okay, so you already have a VIA environment, so you could take advantage of this at this point. So if you chose to, let's say, we don't want to run all our batch jobs in the VIA environment itself. We have access to AWS Batch, for example, and we want to leverage those resources instead. Yes, you can.
How does the licensing work on this then? Like, is it part of the VIA deployment license, or is it a whole separate license? How does it work here?
So it's not a fully separate license. It's licensed with VIA. Okay, so you don't need to get a separate license for it. So right now, early preview, warning, we're still trying to figure out all those mechanics, but right now the idea is that we will provide this as a license component of VIA. So when you get VIA, SBR is part of the things that you can do with it, and as long as you're providing that license every time that you're running your SBR container, you're going to be okay. So that's one of the things I may have missed when I was talking about it, is that you want to make sure that whenever you're launching the container, you're providing the license at that time. You're not baking the license into the container. Because as you guys know, we have a life cycle for the license, right? So it's good for a year. And if you don't renew, or you're late renewing, or you forget, whatever the reason, right? And your containers try to start because you have a regular batch schedule, your containers are going to try to start, but they're going to die right away because they don't have a valid license. So that's why we ask that you always apply the license at runtime versus baking it and putting it into the registry that way.
Hello. Okay. So the question is, now, whatever license we have for a VIA deployment that includes intelligent decisioning and other things, we will have to update our order with the SBR. Cisco is just going to be part of it. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a good time for us because we have just set up our development instance and we are going to productionalize it, meaning cut over from 9.4 to VIA production, maybe by the end of this year. So we will be then setting up our batch jobs in production. So okay, what is the timeline for this to get like, now this is in early phase, so is it going to be like downloadable for customers to be used?
Right now it's by invitation only, so if you guys want to play with it and try it out, like I said, just reach out to me. I should have put my QR code up there. So go ahead and reach out to me and be happy to get you in there and we can work together and making it work.
So I have one question. So you said based on a Spree image, we are going to create this container. Am I right?
No, this is not better than the Spree. This is the Spree with a different configuration around it.
Once we create a container, can we execute any batch job or specific configuration it required to?
It can run any batch job. The only thing that it can't do is run CAS-specific code. It'll run DataStep procs, all the new enhanced procs that we have that work like CAS. All of that, it will run all of that stuff. It cannot run CAS jobs. That's the one thing that it can't do.
can't do cache jobs in this container, what you are saying. Okay, one more question regarding to, you are saying we can run everything in the AWS, GCP, right? Suppose we have a on-prem open source containers, so can we execute over there?
Matter of fact, we have another customer that's already testing it in the pharmaceutical industry that's testing SBR right now, literally as we speak, and they're running it completely on-prem. So yeah, it'll run, if you can run a container, a Docker container, you can run SBR.
So we have hundreds of jobs running on a schedule right now, so we can go and implement on this one, I think, what you are suggesting, right? Yes. If it is not in the CAS job, I think, right?
Yeah, if it's not a CAS job, SBR can run it.
Okay.
Box of any kind, it'll work. If it is Castle, which is the language for CAS or CAS actions, SBR cannot do.
Does this enable to access to SPRI, GPFS, spectrum scale product, the access files?
Yeah, so it is basically, think of it, this is just the SPRI, so whatever the SPRI can do, this does. So any SAS Access products that you've licensed or are part of the package already, you have access to that. So all you have to do is just configure them so they work. That's basically what you would do in VIA anyways.
Thank you.
We have SAS VIA in our development and production. So what is the difference between this and the running like a SAS command, the batch command in the Unix environment?
So you're talking about like the old school SAS 9?
No, SAS VIA.
So you're talking about the SAS CLI?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this would be, in that context, this would be like another compute context. So when you're using the VIA batch CLI, you're basically providing a command line and saying, use this context to run this job, right? So this is basically the same, right? But without the VIA CLI. So you're running, the idea is that you would use this when you don't want to use VIA to run all your batch workloads. You want to run your batch workload on another environment for whatever reason that applies to you. But it doesn't compete with the batch environment that is already in VIA. And if you wanted to, you could create another compute context that is an SBR context that is versioned to a previous version of the SPRI and use the CLI to execute that particular context.
Still using VIA, right? And it's still using VIA container underneath the SBR container. So it's still taking up the same resources. I just don't see the advantage of using this SBR over, SAS CLI.
Yeah, I mean, the advantage of using it, if you want to look at it that way, is simply that you have another execution option for your workload, right? Rather than just being always running within VIA, right? Because it's got its own set of resources and all of that, and maybe you have set up some scaling limits that you say, well, I don't want my VIA cluster to grow any bigger than this, right? And you have a lot of batch jobs as your workloads increases, you're going to have more batch jobs to run. So maybe at some point you're going to start running into those limits that you imposed, right? That say, don't scale beyond this point. Now you have the option to say, okay, well, we don't have to scale here, but we can just go to AWS batch or GCP batch or whatever other batch service provider, and we'll just send the jobs there instead. That's where the advantage lies.
Hey, Daniel. So you mentioned, following up on the question there, right? You mentioned that it uses the same image. You can run this as a pod in via the traditional Kubernetes pod, or you can run this as a container. Have you done any comparison in terms of cost Does it provide significant benefit over running this as a Kubernetes pod versus SBR?
Yeah.
One. And are we able to modify this image to add things or remove things from it if we need to run it outside of VIA entirely?
Two great questions. So I have an answer for the second one, but not the first one, okay? I'll be totally honest. I mean, this is early. We're under a lot of development at this point, trying different things out. So I don't have numbers to share with you to say this is going to save you X amount of money or anything like that. Honestly, I don't know. The second part, yeah, I mean, it's a Docker image. So you can, if you need to add additional packages to it from the operating system standpoint, you can. If you want to add another binary or whatever it might be that you can. I mean, we're not stopping you from doing that. The only thing is like you got to keep in mind that the more things that you add on your own, the more you diminish our ability to support you because now there's more things running in there that we don't know what they're doing.
Hey, Daniel. I think one of the questions I had was on the cost, so he already asked the question out there. But I'm trying to understand from an administrative perspective. We typically don't give access to the AWS console. For a SaaS administrator, in case if from a telemetry monitoring perspective, how easy is it to look at in a single pane of glass for them in terms of the workloads that are running within SaaS via containers and versus the one which runs in SBR?
That's challenging right now because this is not integrated into VIA. It's kind of like on purpose allowed to run outside of VIA. So at that point, for you to get that single pane of glass to see what's running, you're really looking at VIA and looking at CloudWatch basically to see what's running in AWS, for example. So yeah, there is that split there right now. Sure. Any other questions? No? All right. I think we're good. Thank you.